When you buy a luxury sports vehicle, you're making a statement about yourself. You're telling the world that you have so much money that you can afford to buy a vehicle to treat more like a plaything than a means of getting from one place to the next. At the top of the range, sports vehicles cost more than the houses some of us live in. That makes it almost unthinkable that such an expensive purchase would ever be abandoned. But that's the fate that's befallen every vehicle in this video. Watch in horror as we tell you all about the most incredible abandoned super sport vehicles in the world. Formula One racing cars are about as expensive as motor vehicles get. Each one costs millions of dollars, and millions more go into maintaining, modifying, and developing them after they're built. After the end of each season, they're retired and replaced by a brand new car to race on the world-famous circuits of the competition the next year. Where do the old unwanted cars go after that? Well, apparently some of them end up abandoned in France. It's thought that this collection was bought up by a wealthy investor. But then something happened that led to them being forgotten and then left to rot away. And among the group is a 1990s Benetton of the kind driven by the legendary Michael Schumacher. But there are also priceless Ferrari and Benetton cars here too. Some people have claimed that they're imitation cars rather than the real thing. But if that's true, they're the best-looking imitations that we've ever seen. And they still deserve to be looked after better than this. The Honda NXS was a trailblazing vehicle when it was introduced back in the 1990s. It was the first luxury car in the world to have every part of the suspension, bodywork, and chassis all made from aluminum. The popular vehicle stayed on Honda's production line all the way through until 2005, so it's not exceptionally rare. But it is rare to find one abandoned and apparently uncared for. This Honda turned up in the middle of a forest in St. Petersburg and was found by chance by mushroom pickers who were out performing their daily duties. From its condition, it was apparent that the abandonment wasn't recent, because it was covered in moss. Strangely, whoever parked it here also seems to have taken the engine out as they left. The history of the car was traced back on its chassis number, which revealed it had been imported to Russia from Germany. But the car's owner couldn't be located. With nobody else coming to claim it, a custom car company has taken ownership and have started the process of restoring it to roadworthy condition. Classic car traders all dream of stumbling across the perfect barn find, by which we mean a classic and desirable car that has been parked in someone's barn or garage for decades and forgotten about. They happen very rarely, but every now and then somebody will strike lucky. Finding a 1969 Dodge Daytona Charger is about as lucky as you can get, but the real kicker of this story is that it wasn't even the vehicle that the person who took these pictures had gone to look at. Trader Charlie Lyons had gone to inspect the owner's 1970 Chevelle when he casually mentioned the unwanted Charger. And naturally, Charlie was immediately excited. It came to be abandoned because a circuit judge bought it as an everyday car for his wife many years ago, but hadn't factored in the incredible cost of keeping the vehicle fueled. It therefore stayed in a barn until 2015 and became a temporary home to a family of mice. Charlie paid more than $100,000 for his lucky find and plans to restore it himself before selling it on. There's a lot of mystery surrounding this $250,000 Ferrari 488 GTB, which was found abandoned in a field in Huddersfield, England, after apparently coming off the road and crashing through a fence. The damage from the crash isn't terrible, but it appears that the driver fled the scene rather than alerting the authorities and phoning a haulage or repair firm. Nobody would abandon a Ferrari like this in normal circumstances, and so police believe that the driver was either drunk, had stolen the car, or was otherwise driving illegally. Just to make things stranger, even though the license plates were still attached to the car, no owner could be found. The impact damage to the right-hand side of the vehicle, which includes a deep gouge that left the wing mirror hanging off, might even suggest that it came into contact with another car, and yet no crash was reported, and no other vehicle was found at the scene. We'll probably never know what happened, but we do know someone has now lost a very expensive supercar forever. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a man who knows a thing or two about crashed and wrecked cars. The legendary NASCAR driver has been responsible for many of them during his career. There's no doubt that Dale loves the cars he drives, though. So much so that he often takes personal ownership of them when they're too badly damaged to go back out onto the track. Earnhardt has a whole graveyard of wrecked racing cars, which he's created and cultivated himself, including suspending one of them between two trees, as if it had implanted itself there after flying off the track. The official name of his graveyard is Dirty Mo Acres, and it's the final resting place of many of the cars that have been driven to destruction by either Dale or one of his racing friends. Number 10, Wonder Woman, which was wrecked by Danica Patrick during the Go Bowling 500 in May 2017, is one of the more recent additions. The unusual museum is currently off-limits to the public. We hope Dale changes his mind about that in the future. Dubai is one of the wealthiest and most opulent places on Earth. And so if there's anywhere on the planet that a car owner can thoughtlessly abandon a supercar without worrying about the cost, it's there. It happens so regularly that around 2,500 sports cars are left in Dubai's desert every year. But the reasons for their abandonment are more complicated than people probably imagine. The desert is currently home to a whole series of Lamborghinis, Bentleys, Porsches, Honda NSX, and even a $1 million Ferrari Enzo. But the most likely reason for them to be left in this way is that owners have defaulted on loan payments. The falling price of oil in the region means a lot of people there aren't as rich as they used to be, and so they've cut their losses and gone home, leaving their unpaid purchases behind. Non-payment of debt is a criminal offense in the United Arab Emirates, and the prison system is notoriously harsh. So in many cases, it's preferable to dump your assets and run, rather than waiting for the police to pick you up. The only thing better than finding one rare and valuable car in a barn is finding several of them at the same time, which is precisely what happened in France earlier this year. The collection was put together by a rich sports car enthusiast who was unable to continue caring for them when he developed ill health in his later years, and they eventually became abandoned when he passed away without a will or an heir. That left all of the dusty relics heading for auction, where their buyers will likely have to spend a little extra money on refurbishing and restoring them once they've completed their purchases. The star of the old man's range is a beautiful old Lamborghini Miura, but there's also an early model of a Porsche 356, which was also found parked right next to an E-Type coupe, both of them covered in dirt and spider's webs from years of inactivity. Moving further along, the barn find team also found an L-82 Corvette with its keys still in the ignition, a Lincoln Continental convertible, and a prototype Hotchkiss Gregor. Cars aren't the only kind of luxury sports vehicles in the world. If you really want to show off to your friends and neighbors, and you live near a body of water, you might also consider purchasing a speedboat. Perhaps you might even buy a boat that looks exactly like this 18-foot Donzi speedboat. If you do, we hope you treat it better than its owners did. It was found floating abandoned in Boynton Beach, Florida in 2011. A few of the items found on board gave police officers a clue as to what it had been used for. There was a plastic bag full of bread, a gallon of water, and an extra drum of fuel. The police feared it might have been used to smuggle people into America until their dogs sniffed out $20,000 worth of marijuana in a hidden compartment below the steering wheel. Whoever owned and operated the boat was clearly a drug dealer, yet they'd never come back for their boat or the rest of their stash. Perhaps the deal went wrong. The city of Liverpool in England is famed for its history, culture, and its strong sense of identity. It is, after all, the home of the Beatles and one of the world's most famous soccer teams. There are many museums in the city, but there's one that even most of its residents don't know about, and that's the tunnel of abandoned supercars hiding underground. The tunnel was built for a local railway in the late 19th century, but the line was abandoned in 1956. For 20 years after that, it was used as a private car parking garage by wealthy residents. But the tunnel collapsed in 1975 and damaged many of the cars parked inside it. With the collapsed tunnel proving difficult to shift, and the vehicles likely to be written off anyway, the tunnel and its contents were simply abandoned. Determined urban explorers have still managed to gain entry and photograph some of the lost luxury vehicles for us, which include a Lotus 503 Elite, an AMC Pacer, a Mini GT, and a Fiat 103 Coupe. Should any of you ever find yourself sailing around Bermuda, keep an eye out for an abandoned Swan 48 sloop that goes by the name of Wolfhound. It's been a few years now since her crew was forced to abandon her under challenging conditions, but it's theoretically possible she might still be out there somewhere sailing alone. The Irish-owned vessel suffered a total power and engine failure some 70 miles north of Bermuda in 2013, and the rescue ship that answered the crew's distress call only had the capacity to bring them on board. It didn't have means or power to tow the sloop back home. The Wolfhound was abandoned, and it was thought that the crewless ship would sink within days. Instead, it's been spotted twice since, including by a couple who tried to tow her home after finding her 3 months after she was abandoned. The tow rope snapped, and she was left drifting again, by this point 800 miles from Bermuda. We wonder where she ended up. We say that the Wolfhound might still be out there because we know of at least one case where a luxury boat has turned up years after it was lost, and that's the racing yacht Hugo Boss, which once belonged to Alex Thompson. Thompson almost lost his life when the boat suffered a structural fault and capsized during the Velux 5 Oceans race in 2006, but ultimately lived to tell the tale. The ship was thought to have sunk to the bottom of the ocean, but was found abandoned and washed up on a Patagonian beach in 2016, a full 10 years after its abandonment. The IMOCA 60 yacht had been broken into 2 pieces by its crash landing on the shore, but still bore all of its identifying marks. The boat was abandoned just south of South Africa, and so to reach its final resting place, it must have traveled alone for more than 13,000 miles and crossed both the Pacific and Indian Oceans, passing Australia and New Zealand on the way. It will never sail again, but it had quite an epic adventure. You might have heard it said that what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas, and that's definitely true of this McLaren 720 Monocage 2. In this condition, it's never going to drive anywhere ever again. The luxury car, which has a value of more than $300,000, was taking part in a cross-country rally when its driver lost control on a bend and rolled over multiple times, narrowly avoiding what would have been a fatal plunge down a ravine. When police were called to reports of a crash, they found the car abandoned, but later found out that the driver and passenger were both in a local hospital being treated for minor injuries. Amazingly, even though the force of the crash ripped off one of the butterfly doors and severely dented the roof, the occupants were able to walk away from it mostly unharmed. That says a lot about the strength of the carbon fiber that McLaren build their cars with. But even with that build strength, there was sadly no way to salvage this sports car. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!